So welcome everybody to Town Hall session number 6 of the RaC Guild. I can't believe we're at number 6 already. It seemed like just yesterday we got this started. And we're really grateful this evening to have Aimee and Adrian with us tonight. Huge commitment because it's 10 o'clock at night here in New Zealand. So I really appreciate you both being here to share your work experience and what you do in this space or related spaces. So we'll crack straight into it. Aimee, you're first. Aimee is the chair of the Open Data Charter Board, and I will leave it there and let you introduce yourself.
Kia ora. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. I was very chuffed when Joe reached out and said, because I've been following the work of Rules as Code for some years now. Not as closely as I could have been, but that's about to change. but I know there are sterling people all over the world who've been working sort of really hard on it, and I've checked out some of the previous town halls and things. It's just absolutely stellar. So thank you. I feel very honored. Right. So my name is Aimee Whitcroft. Some people call me Max. It's up to you. Various pronouns and all of that sort of goodness. I've got a few, more than 2. And yes, these days I work predominantly in data governance and ethics, but I'll just give you sort of a very brief taster of my background and who I am, and sort of how I can see some of this relating, and then I'll open it up for corridor for a conversation, because that's probably far more interesting than my work going on incessantly. So yeah, I've had this sort of really mad, wide, varied background in everything from management consulting, focusing on sort of qualitative research, and then also things like airport design and retail design, all kinds of things, through to science communication, through to sort of open government and open data stuff, and running sort of major open data situations here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and sort of on, and privacy and so forth. And through all of this, I've ended up more and more in data governance and data ethics and sovereignty and justice and rights, and governance plus data plus. It's all of these other things that people often leave out in their conversation. They focus, for example, quite strongly on data management. Awesome, but it's more than that. I'll get onto that shortly. And of course, the modern Gen AI situation is something with which I'm involved predominantly from a pretty critical standpoint for a whole bunch of reasons around ethics related stuff. Yeah, if we're thinking about data governance here, I mean, there are as many definitions as there are people involved with it, and it does relate very strongly with these other disciplines, but it's basically about zooming out, right? So it's not around those operational. Data management is more the sort of operational, kind of like management, right? It's more about the operational, the day-to-day, how you actually deal with this stuff. The governance, kind of like governance and other aspects, is taking that step back, that zoom out. So there are, I'll look up some definitions here, just and then I won't read them to you because it's terribly dull when people quote stuff. But it's basically about, it's making decisions, right, about what data should be collected and why, who should collect it and use it, in what way, for which purpose, who has the rights to access and or use and or share and or analyze and or store and or archive and or delete it. We keep way too much data. We collect way too much data to begin with. And then also sort of setting in place rules to manage its quality and its completeness and all of that kind of stuff, and its ownership. So it's a fundamentally very human enterprise. It's not a platform play. It's not, you can't just set in place a platform and say, now our data is governed. That's not it at all. You can use them to help, but it's about making decisions about who makes the decisions and who makes those decisions, and thinking intentionally, for me at least, about who's also not in the room, and who should be in the room, because too often we exclude people. We may not have meant to, but we do. And I think that's where the real, some of the real meat of it is. And then sort of the ethics and the sovereignty and the justice and the rights and the equity, there's kind of do what they say on the box when it comes to data, but they're big and gnarly things. It's fascinating, and it makes you want to tear your hair out, and it makes it, you don't need exercise because your blood pressure gets so high when somebody comes up with the latest how LLMs will save the world or whatever. But the reason I'm involved with it is yeah, it's you know, interesting and all that, but I think it's incredibly important as we generate more data, as we use more data, become more data focused. I think possibly too much in some ways. We should be being more intentional about this and sort of standing up against the techno-determinism, shall we put it, as we could put it, or, you know, dataism is the new religion is another way to put it, and go, let's just slow down, let's have a think, let's get intentional, let's try and do this right. Not just well, but right, like whatever right looks like for your culture, your society, your organization, your group, your whatever that looks like, your individuals. Privacy is a huge part of this, of course, as is transparency. A very interesting thing there. But yeah, so I'm interested in it because I've always been interested in this kind of stuff. I've worked around this kind of stuff across sectors and countries for many, many years. And frankly, I'm kind of upset with the way things are going. And I figure I could either be angry and do nothing, or I could be upset and try and do something, you know, like positive action. Climate's a huge part of this as well. So that's kind of the rough blurb. I'm sure you all know, or like, heaps about this, but I thought also for the people who might watch, it's useful to make sure on the same page and have shared definitions, at least for the purpose of this conversation, because it's so easy to talk across purposes otherwise. Yeah, and so how this interacts with rules as code, I mean, oh gosh. People will be asking that question, and yes, I do need to really sort of dive into this. But I mean, fundamentally, this is about data, right, at its very core. And rules are written in words, but words are still fundamentally a form of data. They're a more qualitative form of data a lot of the time. We can get into natural language processing and do all kinds of fun things, but fundamentally, they are a form of information. And so one could quite easily see, I think, rules as code work, which is amazing. But because it involves data, because it's going to generate ever more of it, again, what governance structures are we putting in place around all of the stuff that we're going to be generating, using, looking after, you know, how are we making sure that we maintain this stuff well, that we go back in and we check that it continues to be as valid as it was when we first generated it, that the interactions it's having with other things are continue to be unharmful, because hopefully we set them up not to be harmful in the first place. All of that kind of stuff, I think fundamentally it's there. And then it's a wider conversation, as it always is. I did in my research, and I still need to read the entire special edition, because, oh Lord, I used to read some of the more sociological types of papers sometimes. But this is a whole, from February this year, in regulation and governance, so y'all have probably read the whole special edition on rules as data. And yeah, it gets into the stuff and looks very gnarly, and I'm very excited to read it. But it sort of brought that up, right? Is, again, these are governance processes we're encoding, which fundamentally is code and data. So how are we governing that kind of situation, right? Anyway, so that's kind of me. I told you it would be brief.
It's turtles all the way up, isn't it, Aimee?
And in every direction, there's just turtles everywhere, man. It's a good thing we like turtles. And yeah.
So what was the paper that you read? Because I haven't seen that.
I'll drop it into the chat. It's an entire special edition in this journal that I came across called Regulation and Governance. Terribly thrilling stuff. But yeah, this looks, it's something I want to sort of duck into and dive into a little bit, just as, yeah, like it's kind of cool. I mean, this is really sort of, this is very hardcore around how it's more about sort of interpreting legal texts and things like that. But it looks interesting, and I thought you all might find it cool as well, or possibly useful if you hadn't already internalized it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. We'll drop it into the notes on the YouTube and on the RaC Guild website as well, so that everybody can dive into it. So when you've because you've worked governments, you've worked in New Zealand, Canada.
Yeah, so I've worked with local governments in Canada via an incredible NGO there. My time in South Africa, which is where I grew up, that was private sector. And then I've done a little bit over the Tasman in the private sector, not very much. And then a heap in New Zealand with predominantly central government, but then CRIs, startups, community organizations, civilian-led movements like GovHack, all kinds of things. Yeah, like not as much private sector in New Zealand, interestingly enough, but you never know what. And yeah, there's some stuff coming down the line I can't talk about yet, but that will be more around and back into the smart city stuff. I've been involved in and around smart cities and digital twins and open smart cities for a number of years. So all of that and the sort of data governance ethics things kind of runs through a lot of it. It's not the point of it, or it shouldn't be. Neither should tech, but they can be either enabled or damaged by these things. It's trying to push for the enablement, not the damage. And governance almost always gets left out of the conversation, including in climate. So I wrote a paper on climate data governance last year. So let's bring it back to some basics. Let's zoom out. Let's start to really think through these concepts wherever we are, whatever we're doing, because if it's touching data, we should be having these conversations.
Yeah, and making rules around it, right? And yeah.
Yeah, and then we could maybe even encode them again, though, realizing like a platform play will never be how you do data governance properly, but it is really important, I think, in helping to do it. Absolutely. So you can see these virtuous circles and virtuous cycles if they're done properly, and very happy Venn diagrams and network, effect things and systems and all of that stuff, rather than hierarchies or linearities. But feedback loops, big feedback.
So with that in mind, Adrian, seeing as we're almost there, I don't know whether can you hear me? I think you can hear me. My screen is frozen, but you can hear me maybe. Do you want to hop into your presentation and explain to us a little bit more about your work and what you have done? Because we've kind of heard little bits of it now, but not actually frame it for us.
Yeah. So yeah, my journey started kind of officially when I wrote a language called Loglaw, which is available. There's a conference paper from 2019, which is called a digital model for New Zealand legislation, I think it's called. So I presented it to the Commonwealth, and it's got the specifications for a digital modelling language for law. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and talking to people about it before I kind of produced the paper. James Every Palmer, he's now a KC. He used to be a QC. He was he's the only person I know that's got a PhD in AI, and also is a top lawyer. I mean, he's quite an amazing person in his own right. And he said we need a new language to model law, because we were all playing around with there's a Bitcoin language. It was called Ethereum. There was kind of some kind of contract language. I had a look at it. I mean, to be honest, it's just and it compiled like a dog, and it just didn't. And then James Every Palmer was going, oh, we need a new language for to model law and AI, and I've been working, and I was going, no, we don't. God, this is the last thing but in the end, I wrote one, and then I presented it, and in between that, we had discussions with Pia, and Pia Andrews is just fantastic. She was working with Data 61. She surfaced in New Zealand, and we kind of immediately connected. So I've done conferences around the place, mainly in the UK, and I'll explain how that came about and why that is. Mainly because I presented the paper in 2019, and the UK government said, we'll have that, thank you very much. And so I was over there and got Pia, and she presented at one of my seminars. It was a grueling all-day seminar. I had jet lag, and I put this thing together in Whitehall, and Lord yada yada was there, and this guy was there, and it was my turn to speak, and it was like I froze. I couldn't think. It was kind of absolute terror. So that was a wee while ago now, and since then the UK government's basically taken out our there's a whole bunch of technology that goes with what we do. It's not, and a whole lot of thinking and processes. And they've purchased it wholesale bolus. We've done a really big project with them, modeling the welfare system. It's called Universal Credit. It's kind of like all of their welfare system rolled into one. It's about 400 pages, and we've modeled it for them. They're really happy with it. We've learned so much. It's taken us a year or two and a lot of missteps. But at the same time, it's enabled us. My company's called Novellex. It's enabled us to build up some really good developers and some good business processes. So it's not just the fact that we got some money in the door and all that kind of stuff. It allowed us to actually do some deep thinking and learning around how to deliver rules as code. And it was very generous of them. So that the UK government's pretty innovative. They really do actually support innovation at quite a high level. They put their money where their mouth is, and they still think that we're cheap and did a great job. I was saying to Joe, we came in after EY destroyed £1 million worth of money and delivered. So we did okay. Now we're kind of in development phase. We're doing our platform's developing more and more to be, like I was saying, we want it to be really open and easy for people to use, and so we're looking at non-IT type. They call it a low-code environment, but it's a visual system that we use to allow people to govern these rules as code corpuses, corpora. So we're in that phase at the moment, and also we're entering the New Zealand market, which is kind of really strange, isn't it? I mean, 2019, we went over there. The UK government ponied up a large amount of cash. I've been backwards and forwards to London for like 3 years now. I go over 3 times a year, still do. Long may it continue, but we're really interested in working in New Zealand now, because it is quite tiring, and it's time to kind of come home, and we're working at the moment with bits and pieces, and we've done some work for the Parliamentary Council's office in New Zealand on XML digitisation of the law. Not quite rules as code, but that's something we've done with them. And we're working with a couple of departments at the moment, and this is something that I think is kind of quite interesting, and kind of goes to the core of what we do as rules as code. I mean, we're a bunch of developers and business people and a project manager, or one and a half of them. The disability sector in New Zealand, I mean, for us, there's a whole bunch of confusion around what the rules are and what the rules should be. And so the way it's delivered in New Zealand, there's places like Manawinui, who are like intermediaries, if you like, between the government funders who fund and the disabled people that use the funding. So, and they do a great job in providing a platform for. It's kind of like a contract situation where the government says, okay, disabled people have X amount of dollars. We need to police or have rules around its use by them. And Manawinui act as kind of an in-between, and a go-between in that process. But about 6 months ago, the process fell over. No one knew what the rules were. There was too many changes. A minister lost their job over this precise issue. And for me, rules as code has something to really offer in this area. in there providing a neutral platform, and if it's done properly and transparently, then all parties, the government, the Mananui type people who are intermediaries, and of course the disabled people themselves, they can all, if it's done right, can access the rules that apply to them in a clear and simple format. So we're pitching that one quite hard. Talking to Louise Upston at the moment. She's very generously given us a bit of time to come in from the government side, and we're talking with other people. I mean, obviously, it's a you know, we are a business. So there's, you know, I can't really go into too much, but you get the general gist. I mean, the point here is these are the kind of the things that rules as code can actually help with on a day-to-day basis, you know, within the community, right? And very keen to get the New Zealand government as excited as the UK government is about our services, and I think that, you know, even I don't want to sound too altruistic, but I mean, rules as code as a general concept, even if it's not us. I mean, it needs to be forwarded in New Zealand and championed. And I talked to Joe about this. I mean, you know, leaving aside the fact that we have mouths to feed and we're a business and all that kind of thing, it's a great idea, and the New Zealand government should be just picking it up anyway. And if it's not me and my company and my crew, then it should be someone else doing it, and it should be supported in an open and transparent way. And I think there's room for lots of different people. There's nothing wrong with commercial providers like ourselves. There's open source. There's all sorts of ways that this can be done. But fundamentally, I mean, I tend to agree with Aimee. It comes down to data governance at the core of it. Without that, I don't think we pass go. Get that right, then maybe you don't even care about the technology, and of course, no one really cares about the poor old businessman trying to make a dollar. And I'm not asking for any sympathy in that regard, but I mean, as a general, I mean, I've been a civil servant most of my life, and I fundamentally believe that I don't want to get all rightsy, but I mean, it's like, you know, we should be able to know what the rules are that apply to us, and if we can use technology to do that, then yay, good. Let's do it. Right. So that's us.
Super cool.
And the more of us that can do it, Adrian, the better, right?
I missed some of that. Sorry.
I said, and the more of us that can actually do it.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
The more people involved. I mean, you know, and in actual fact, I need to connect you with. I mean, over the years, I've kind of gathered a few a few contacts. I mean, there's a really good project going. You probably know about Blorks in Canada. There's the OzCow people. They did a really good presentation, a rules as code kind of masterclass, it was called, and they got 6 different systems together and got everyone to present. They're actually available online. It's really, really good. I mean, it goes through. I mean, I'm on there with my old company that fell apart. I'm not going to go into that, but I mean, it's an evolution. I tell you, it's startups and businesses. It's a it's a journey, and so. But that's a great resource. And there's Matthew Waddington in Jersey, who and Zoe, who's actually a New Zealander, works for her. They have a project as well. So there's a few things I'd like to share, because I think that we can. There's a large community out there already that perhaps you haven't connected with. The OzCow people would be quite interesting. The Natalias, I call them, the 2 Natalias. They're really interested. They often try and reach into New Zealand and try and make OzCow into like some kind of trans-Tasman thing. But they're kind of legal tech people, so they're also really interested in the Bitcoin stuff and the distributed ledger stuff. But they do a good line in rules as code. They're really good people. Waddington presented with him, and the guy does Blorks over in Canada. They're all Morris. They're all good people, and in fact, Susskind from. Have you ever heard of? You know that guy Susskind. He's a bit of a big noter actually. He's like Alvin Toffer or something. Turns out, so he's interested in rules and code now as well. So so yeah.
You're a mine of information, Adrian.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I should share
a whole list of people to bring together, so that we can compare notes, right?
Yeah,
and yeah.
Well, Natalia's would be really good value. I mean, they're really nice. Those people. And they're close to home. And yeah, I think they're kind of more open fiscary type. But to their credit, they listen to everybody's point of view and present it all in an agnostic way. So I haven't kept up with them because we moved off elsewhere. Yeah. What? I'm trying to be transparent. I can't give away any state secrets. I'd like to. I could do a commercial presentation and treat you like clients, but I'm not going to do that.
Well, I was about to say, I know we've only got 6 minutes left, but I'd actually love to see something that you've put together.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's what we sell. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have a visual tool which generates data code, and then we use that to create what we call navigators, which allow people to navigate through the law. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasoning and thinking behind it, and the language itself is called log law. Yeah. I mean, I can show you some of the stuff that we did. I mean, there are some sensitivities around it because it is government work, but they are reasonably happy for us to show it in as long as it's kind of in a safe environment. So when I present to other government clients, I use that as a case. And actually, we've done ourselves a bit of a disservice because I mean, I hear people going, "Oh, this is the first time rules as code being done in government, yada yada," and I think, well, you know what?
It's not. It's just not.
I'd like to correct you, but I'm not getting into that. I mean, we've done what we've done, and yeah. So yeah. So the tools that we use, I'd love to present them. Absolutely. I've got a slideshow with some stills in it. It is actually getting a bit late. Maybe another time, but I wanted to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah. I'm quite proud of the tool because I was the front-end engineer on it, believe it or not. It's so kind of because I'm a bit cheap, but also our other guy. I don't want to go into that. That's kind of an employment. Yeah. Anyway, so I did. That's that. Yeah. So yeah, we've got a couple of back-end and a couple of front-end guys, and I'm actually kind of one of them because I own half the company. I can take whatever job I like. And I quite like doing front-end development. Yeah. Anyway.
Adrian, we're going to have to book in another time to have for you to be able to share that with us.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it's a cool tool, and you'll see how it all fits together. Yeah, and you'll see. There's a website we can have a look at. I mean, as long as it's kind of in a safe environment. I mean, there are sensitivities
I don't know what that
around.
means. We'll make it safe. Whatever it looks like, we'll make it safe.
Yeah.
So that you can share it. Because if we don't do that, we don't get to the point where everybody can do this. Before we close off, because we do need to close off so that everybody, because it's late.
It is late.
It's late in New Zealand. Julian, you've been very quiet there. I wonder where are you beaming in from, and whether you have any questions.
No, it has been very quiet. That's mostly because you would have otherwise heard my son in the background, because it is that bedtime routine. But yeah, no, just home. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, and we will hopefully have this online pretty quickly so that you can share it with your other colleagues as well. And we will find a time, Adrian, and a place to be able to do this so that we can share in your expertise and find your papers as well so that we can share them through the website and through the YouTube channel as well, so people can have a look at the language that you've created. That would be great. That would be really awesome.
Yes, the New Zealand government's put out some good papers in the rules of code area, and they won actually a few OECD awards. And in actual fact, the OECD is getting very interested in this again.
Absolutely, which is
so-
why it's now's the time to start allocating the space and all of the practitioners that are working in it right now, right?
I mean, putting those government papers up would be great, and I'll send you a link to my own paper. I mean, it was an important paper at the time, and here we go. Yeah, I wrote one about the digital divide, but maybe that's
Well,
I don't know how many times you can say transparency over and over again in a paper, but I managed to do it all. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to leave. I'm sorry, everyone. This is actually
that's good. We need to close down anyway. So
yeah, I'm sorry. I just have to dash. I mean, 10:45.
late in the evening. Absolutely.
Lovely to
Thank
meet you
you.
all, and I'd love to demonstrate. And I'm going to share some contacts and some papers, and really thankful that you've shared what you have as well. So I'll talk to you all later.
Just before you do, just a quick acknowledgement of both your presentations. I have so much comments and questions. I'm spewing that it's so late, but I've written them all down. I've got like 55 pages of notes. I think I caught RSI from all my typing, but thank you both so much, and it's been awesome. Again, lots of comments and questions, but it is late, so thank you, and I hope we get another chance and another time to share and exchange and bombard you with all the stuff that's just gone through my head now with everything you've just presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred, feel free to reach out with them, mate. I'm available. We can line up.
Yeah, cool.
Or I can just reach out. That's what I do. Is I'm known for being available.
Be careful what you wish for, but okay. I'll
I have capacity right now. Use it.
Before we sign off, there is a Slack channel.
Yes.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, I can throw
Also,
these questions in the Slack channel. Absolutely.
On the website.
Oh, Slack. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. I think I was supposed to use that at some stage. But we ended up. I think I got it. We ended up doing that Atlassian thing instead. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Yeah, I think we had a.
Have a good night.
I'll see you all later. I'll go.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks you all.
for your
All
time.
right, thanks a lot. See you later. Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.